Welcome everybody to the Oceanside Library's Poetry Near and Afar. We have two of my favorite poets are on here tonight. Sister Joy joining us from Maryland and Anne joining us right here from Long Island. And so without any further ado, Anne Coen.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tony. Thank you, Oceanside Library. And so thrilled that the gazebo season is starting in 2 weeks. My poems are very loosely themed this evening on gardening and personal growth. So without further ado, Garden of Unfinished Verse. Tell me, where do unfinished poems go? Do they lie dormant under fields of snow? Do they languish in journals, emitting deep sighs? When is their untapped potential realized? Why let them fester, to rot on the vine? They plead to be fashioned by your own design. Your poems are not broken. There is nothing to mend. They are slow to bloom flowers you must lovingly tend. There is someone in need of the stories you bear, so gather an armful of poetry to share. Your poems are not broken. There is nothing to mend, only unspoken longing in search of a friend. To Senryu. I'll read each one twice. They have nothing to do with each other. An eerie tune drifts as Mr. Softy drives away. Ugh, Doppler effect. An eerie tune drifts as Mr. Softy drives away. Ugh, Doppler effect. And this one is based on a family wedding we attended 2 weeks ago. Words for wedded bliss. Yes, dear, you are right. I'm sorry. Listen to your wife. Words for wedded bliss. Yes, dear, you are right. I'm sorry. Listen to your wife. And I'm sorry for those who have to listen to the Peonies poems all over again, but it's a triptych. I finally finished. Took me 3 years to get a triptych out of it, but here it is, the first one. Peonies. I hope you don't mind if I cut some peonies and set them in the painted porcelain pitcher. How quickly they've gone from bursting buds to seashell pink beauties, flanked by fiddlehead ferns, now unfurled to feathered fronds. I remembered your instructions to shake the bouquet upside down several times to dislodge the ants. I meant to stop by earlier to transplant some roots into my own yard. But it is already late in the season. I must try in the fall, before the first frost, before the house is sold. June 2022. Transplanted. After October's deluge, we waited a day before digging, expecting our spades to slice soil like hot knives through butter. Tangled stems confronted us, mounds of roots and tubers tightly intertwined as if resenting the intrusion. I imagined how you'd chide for the disruption to your flower beds. My husband shook his head. Your mother would say, take more. She'd rather those peonies went to family than strangers. Back home, we wrestled unwieldy clumps into a shallow trench beneath our bedroom window, uncertain about the proper planting depth. We brushed dirt from our hands, silently praying our labor would take root, just as you did when transplanted from your beloved homeland nearly 75 years ago, October 2023. In full bloom, I kept my expectations low, aware that the first year's growth could be negligible, even devoid of bloom. All winter, I worried the transplanted rootstock would fail to take. Yet, every day, there is evidence of new life. The soil began to crack mid-March. In early April, fuchsia fingers pointed at the sky. By May, leaves broadened. Stems grew in stature. Tender buds swelled. I await the promise of June, when the familiar, intoxicating fragrance of peonies in full bloom will greet me. When fresh bouquets of seashell pink beauties will be arranged in your painted porcelain pitcher again, May 2024. And now for something a little bit different. Last week we celebrated Gotcha Day. And for those of you who are familiar with animal rescue organizations, Gotcha Day is Adoption Day. And we adopted a pet bunny. So this is about his adoption day. We've had him for 4 years now. Gotcha Day. Adoption Day at last. A rabbit rescue volunteer brought 2 contenders. Which one would win us over? Eeyore was a fluffy brown specimen with a ratty rump resembling a tutu. Motivated purely by hunger, he ambled into the pen, consuming an entire bowl of lettuce before severe social anxiety sent him back to the safety of his carrier. Eeyore was a flop. Arlo, black as coal, had us at the first shake of his helicopter ears. Those large Dr. Seuss-like eyes were irresistible. With a herky-jerky lurch, he eagerly explored the premises, scattering numerous deposits across the living room rug. We began to question the accuracy of his online profile, detailing his impeccable litter box habits. He knew exactly what he was doing, marking his territory. We didn't choose Arlo. He chose us. And this one is dedicated to students of mine who are going to be entering their senior year of high school in the fall. They were a very, very special class. This is called Learning Means You're Alive. Her hand was constantly in the air, brow furrowed in concentration. Answers were blurted out before I could call on her. 99% of the time, she was wrong. I praised the effort anyway. During a test review game, she delivered a rapid fire of incorrect responses. She looked so discouraged. I burst into applause. "Who is that for?" she scowled. "Hooray! You took a risk. You put yourself out there regardless of the outcome." "But I was wrong," she objected. "Yes, exactly. That's wonderful." I began to do a happy dance in front of her desk. Her eyes widened in astonishment. "Hey, everybody," she yelled. "Mrs. Coen actually likes it when we're wrong. How are we going to explain that to our parents?" I stopped dancing. I shook her hand instead. She shook her head in disbelief. "You made a mistake and learned something in the process. And learning means you're alive. So congratulations, everyone. You're alive." Okay. Welcome to my brain. Hello, brain. It's time we became reacquainted. Once eponymy was called slower than molasses in January, was criticized for being overly sensitive, had uncoordinated written on my health record. I couldn't keep up in math class, but the fear of seeing inattentive on my report card didn't deter me from daydreaming. Bullied for being tall and odd, I had to think on my feet to survive. Sarcasm became my weapon of choice. Once eponymy learned to play the violin and write poetry. Once eponymy learned compassion for misfits and outcasts. Once eponymy learned generosity. Present day me sets clocks ahead, so I won't be late. I am still forgetful. I still need glasses to find my glasses. It may take me years to decide on a paint color, but I can buy a car in a week. Hyperfocus is my superpower. Thank you, brain, for all your messy, neurodivergent glory. Because you see, my ADHD makes me audacious, driven to be hyper creative by design. And my last one is the Lawn Ranger. Joe's smiling. The surgeon was adamant. No pulling, pushing, or lifting for 4 weeks. Not unless my husband planned to repeat hernia surgery. What about mowing the lawn? You don't have gardeners? Came the incredulous reply. You're looking at them, we shrugged. 2 weeks into recovery, the lawn was decidedly unkempt. It is time to learn the ways of the lawn ranger, Joe announced. Tried as I might, I couldn't get the hang of flipping the handle when mowing a new row. Worried about tripping over the extension cord, I kept going over the same section in a V-shaped pattern. What are you doing? He groaned. I'm pretending I'm vacuuming, I said reassuringly. Look, it's giving the grass a nice, even haircut. The backyard looked pretty decent. It was time to move to the front lawn. Afraid I'd run over the cord, Joe held on to it, following me around like an acolyte. We received strange looks from passers-by. For some reason, dog walkers made me feel particularly awkward. Was my husband trying to keep me on a leash? A week later, the lawn needed another haircut. Before I could object, Joe rolled the lawnmower out of the shed. Hi-ho, Silver! The lawn ranger had returned. And that's all she wrote.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Ann. Everybody you can unmute yourselves and give her a nice round of applause.
Oh, what a perfect ending poem. All of them were great. That's wonderful.
Absolutely love it.
Great humor.
All right, thank you, Ann. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have some, we're up to 34 people in here, which is nice. We can, again, if you have not, if you do not want to be in the open mic, please throw it in the chat. And without any further ado, we're going to keep this great evening rolling. Ladies and gentlemen, Sister Joy.
Thank you. And well, hello, everyone. And thank you to my poetry family and friends that have joined, and to the longtime and new poet friends that have joined on Zoom tonight. I have 7 poems I'd like to share, and I hope you enjoy the journey. The first is titled After. After the afternoon downpour, I hike up my skirt and step into streaming waters, warm enough to bathe in. Such a midday deluge seldom lasts, and swirling waters kissing recently freed toes can be surprisingly soothing. So, shoes in hand, I sashay toward flooded sidewalks and current-filled streets. Opting to avoid each as long as possible, I allow my feet to sink into the narrow islands of saturated soil between street and sidewalk, previously deemed inappropriate as walkway. Glistening puddles surround my car. Warm rain and childhood memories invite me to bathe my bared feet in this alluring, albeit fleeting, splash park. Reawakening, if only for an instant, tucked away memories of juvenile summertime fun. I dance in concrete-warmed rivulets that tickle my toes, resurrecting delightful echoes of a once playful farm girl, now quite grown, but welcoming back moments of childhood freedom and glee, splash dancing in midday rain. My next poem is titled Dawn at the River. Casino Queen reads the neon sign on a paddle-wheeled boat at the far side of the river. Two small birds hitching a ride on driftwood gliding by. Sense the status of this intruder, studying them from ashore. The morning breeze welcomes me as the paddle-wheeled boat, boasting of hourly cruises, awaits the dawn. The illusion of her wheels' backward dancing lights lures me to a bygone era. I blink twice and look away to break the hypnotic hold, uncertain if it is she who calls me or the river. The river, which holds the secrets of life's mysteries, hidden stories of the glories and tragedies, the history of a nation between her banks. This river, whose waters forge a nation from north to south. This river that has ushered forth life-giving waters through a nation's infancy and adolescence. This river, which has seen a nation's growth and gains, felt its progress and pains, and who, through it all, never withheld her bounty, through malice, guilt, pride, nor shame, but blesses all who embrace her shores. As I stand on her mighty banks, seeking the wisdom of time that courses through her veins, I lift prayers that her waters not become an eternal flow of tears, ushered forth by our refusal to hear and heed her warnings. Does the river survive because she knows these secrets? Will she share them with those willing to listen? Am I astute enough to discern her words? I watch a hue of azure blue work westward as the St. Louis sky lifts her midnight veil. The arch, which had loomed ominously behind me, now glistens. Trees and skyscrapers relinquish the horizon in unchallenged awe. Only this river could host such regal splendor and still remain queen. A distant bell tolls, signaling the half hour. Birds begin to chirp. A small piece of driftwood washes ashore, lodging in the muddy riverbank near where I stand. I cautiously step from the safety of my viewing vantage point, retrieve the driftwood, and continue to watch the mighty Mississippi roll by. My next poem is titled Nooses. Nooses. I recently had reason to travel south. Saw historical landmarks, placards marking former plantation property. Throughout my southern journey, I eyed the abundance, the seas of trees. Elegant and aged as they are, I couldn't help but believe that some of these were lynching trees, had felt the weight of Black bodies. Any one of these might be among those forced to be complicitous trees, where Black men or women hung as ancestors' mournful moans echoed amid each torturous and torched scene. Always a horrific travesty, all too often done to mask fear and insecurity, and of course, keep other Blacks in line. As I stood in the shade of one particularly mighty and majestic tree, whose strong arms stretched high and wide, as if proclaiming innocence before God and all the world, it occurred to me that there must have been someone, probably more than one someone, during their travels here in the Deep South, who came across a rope hanging from a tree. Some man or woman of conscience, some witness who refused to let it be, some freedom-loving, merciful soul on a mission to remove a noose, release a rope, rebel. Maybe they encountered an encrusted, mostly eroded, corroded, deteriorate upon touch rope, while others required more, a forceful tug, a pissed off pull, or a soul-wrenchingly serious yank. But I believe there were even some, clearly more than one, remnant of a noose that refused to give, refused to let loose. You know, that hardcore, not ever gonna let go type, that insisted on its right to exist beyond its perverted time of yesteryear. Such vile, gruesome relics defiled even the most exquisite of God's trees. Such could not remain for even one more eye to see, for they lacerated the soul, were a gut, a punch in the gut. It was those ropes that required a cut. That's when conscience-driven, witness-turned gymnast would climb up a tree and bring that rope down. And amid each prayer-steeped climb, amid the release of silent tears, saturating hopeful ropes that had for years begged for release from their mournful legacy, each rope finally came down. No, cuts could not undo history, but they could end sorrow-filled whispers and groans, the need for prayers and pleas of Black souls and Southern trees whose limbs mourned and moaned, yearning to be freed from hate-filled legacies. A legacy of Black bodies seeking freedom, only to be known after they'd hung, after they'd swung from lynching trees in the South and throughout this country. My next poem is titled Ancestral Voices. It's significantly shorter. Ancestral voices resonate today with the honor you were never accorded, with the dignity you were ever denied. Your celestial song of freedom now echoes without mind to waiting labor or chores. It walks along shafts of luxuriant sunbeams and rolls around carefree clouds. We hear each sacred refrain and pay homage in hopes that you, dearest loved one, no longer even recall the weariness and pain you suffered, the life of toil and torture you endured. Your song has become our fervent and most holy prayer. My next poem is titled My Father's Hat, subtitled First Tuesday. My father's hat, that stingy-brimmed summer straw, held a story all its own. Now in permanent repose, it sat these past 12 years atop that brass coat rack, angled just as he would have liked. He'd always worn his hat just so. This summer straw was his favorite, whether to shop or just walk. He never learned to drive, so making groceries was part of his regimen. A morning walk, greeting neighbors, forefinger touching the tip of his hat just so, offering a gentleman's smile and an ever so gentle nod for the ladies. Such was his way here up north. He bought that hat in the 50s back in Georgia, long before that first Tuesday in November, before his first election day in D.C. Didn't matter that his man didn't win. He'd felt Humphrey would have done good, and this was the first year he could say so. He'd bought that summer straw early in the year, while still down south, packed it away until his first true election day. This was the Tuesday he spoke of most. Didn't boast about voting, but always knew he'd never again be denied the thing that every 4 years gave him such pride. It was a private thing, him and his hat. Together, they'd silently enter the booth that allowed his voice to join the chorus of ancestors who'd paved the way. In his mind's eye, he'd stand in front of a line of long Black folk in some southern town that prevented folk like him, like them, from ever even knowing the feel of such an incredible deed. So now, after adjusting his best Sunday overcoat and donning his out-of-season summer straw, the one he packed away for the train ride up north, after cocking it to just the right angle, just enough to proclaim pride without arrogance, and lowering it just enough for proper homage and reverence to those who never got the chance, he walked up to that polling place, only removing the hat after going inside. But once that curtain closed, when it was just him and the hat, that's when he stood tallest of all, pushed that hat way back, that special way that said to the entire universe and its creator, "Here am I, Lord, having my say." Despite centuries of slavery, decades of discrimination, Jim Crow and worst, that broke the spirit and more of so many. But before pulling the lever that delivered dignity, he quietly and proudly said, "Thank you, God." He'd then stand there for a minute, because he could, before silently raising his right hand, reach up to adjust that hat, tap the brim with his forefinger in salute to Almighty God. Then, before once more removing the hat and re-entering man's world, he whispered words that acknowledged his plight, but strengthened
and emboldened his soul. John Matthews here, sir, reporting for duty one more time. My next poem is titled Ordained Work. After dreaded possibilities become realities, new strategies must be born. The norm of yesterday won't work, so we learn to lead and lift, embracing the gifts of faith, fashion, faith, vision, and integrity, growing, moving as one, finding true power through unity. God's word reminds us to brace, gird ourselves well, for storm and hurricane will continue to come. Each calls us to reach deep inside. Apathy has had its day. Hear now the clear voice of conscience and resolve. Each stands ready to show us the way. Let not pain detain nor deter us, but let compassion's conviction flow as we follow her lead. We must master our weapons of prayer, purpose, and memory, for just as we cannot succumb, we must not forget. History tells us that God's hand is upon us. It is his will that bends the moral arc and troubles the water. His grace that, despite all, stills our soul, strengthens our resolve. Pressing from the past, we release yesterday and are reborn through prayer, followed by purposeful acts. For as has been said, faith without works is dead. Deed can and must connect us one with the other. Now is our time to lift another, leading with unbroken spirits and steady strides, empowered and emboldened by hard-learned lessons from hard-won victories that cost us greatly. So today we strive relentlessly with passion and tenacity toward goals, generations in the making, confident and convicted that the work we do is ordained for such a time as this. And closing with a shorter poem on faith's edge. This now feels heavy, pulling me to places that block sunlight. I have dwelt amid such barrenness before, learned to pierce openings that sufficiently light my way, despite the presence and persistence of shadows. Stars ignite within me, illuminating a universe brimming with hope. This is how it begins. I catch hold of faith's rope, swing to plateaus made safe for landing by searching souls such as mine. Upon each new vista, I dance in defiance and am freed yet again to flourish, unbound by fear. Cutting my way through countless pregnant minefields, ever mindful of traps and snares, I nurture each tiny mustard seed I find along the way, watering with my tears in the absence of rain, testifying with my truth despite yesterday's pain. I remind myself that the sun will rise again. Thank you so much.
Woo-hoo. All right. Please, everybody, unmute yourselves. Let's give great round of applause. That was amazing.
Wonderful,
That
powerful.
was absolutely amazing.
Riveting, beautiful.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much.
Terrific. Terrific night. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Ann.
Mm.
Wow. All right. We're gonna move into our who? Irene, you've got a lot of noise in your background. Okay. We're gonna move now into our open mic. Again, one non-epic length poem, please. And I'll announce who it is coming up to read and then who is on deck. If you do not want to read and you have not told me that yet, please put that into the chat. Okay. So we're going to start with Edna and David. You're on deck. That was a great night. Go ahead, Edna.
Heartache. Esteemed cardiac surgeon, no one matches your expertise in mending the human pump. With deft hands, you harvest a healthy vein from the leg, connect it to bypass a blockage in the artery, restoring the flow of blood. But did you ever look deep inside with open eyes to see where love and empathy reside? In the upper chamber on the right, next to elation and the joy of life. And down in the ventricle, did you notice gloom, piles of disappointments, stacks of broken promises? Sorry, Doc. No doubt you can replace a faulty valve, but you cannot repair a broken heart.
Thank you very much. All right, David, you're up. Margaret, you're on deck.
Thank you. I wrote this just before the total eclipse last month. I don't know if anyone happened to see it. I was in Toronto. It was kind of cloudy, but got a piece of it. Not quite a total eclipse. Nothing eclipses total eclipse day, and yet schools closed and kids' only homework is to practice wonder and stare up instead of into their iPhones to see if only briefly reverent cosmic eye candy for a once-in-a-lifetime taste. In the summer of '63, I saw my first eclipse, viewed with overexposed Kodak film and pieces of green pop bottles. My second happened in Istanbul in 1999, when for a couple of minutes the temperature dropped dramatically. I realized we're unconsciously beholden to this bright star circle of cosmic ferocity. The eclipse I want to see banished from the cosmos is humanity's heart plunged into darkness, blocking out love's sun from radiating its fullest powers. I wish it would pass over Russia, Ukraine, and Israel, Gaza, stop the bullets and bombs for a compassionate pause, make the moon's darker side, lover of death and destruction, disappear. If only history could repeat itself. In 585 BC, the Lydian and Median 6-year war in what is today Turkey yielded no victor. The Battle of the Eclipse, according to Greek historian Herodotus, was stopped by a day turning into night phenomenon. In ancient times, solar eclipses meant the gods were angry and the sun would flee the earth. This ominous sign caused 2 warring nations to settle a peace treaty shortly afterward. It's a total eclipse of the heart every day we don't unite as one human family. History connects us to our celestial home in shared awe and unity that far outweighs our differences. Let us not abandon heaven's heritage to teach and heal.
Thank you very much, David. All right, Margaret, you're up, and Marvin, you're on deck.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Sister Joy and Anne. Great features. I'm going to read my poem that was accepted in the Voices in Verse anthology that came out this weekend. It's called Confessional Poem. I confess, I chose poetry because I couldn't dance, got kicked out of the chorus in the 8th grade. I couldn't master reading sheet music or carrying notes on a violin. I chose poetry because I letter wrote as a teenager, story wrote as an adult, until I met metaphor. He made me cheat with simile, fooled around with rhyme, built stanzas. I confess, it's poetry, better than beer, tastier than wine, cheaper than cigarettes, doesn't stink a room like weed, and it's legal everywhere. I chose poetry, met others who chose also, fell in love with their craft. Together we created a poetry community where we share it like joints. I confess, I write poetry. I get my high seeing my name in print. It's my greatest achievement. I share my gift with others. We are artists. Some of us call us fools. We're not. We're only wasted on our creative words. I confess, I call it by the truth. We are unique. We are original. We are misfits. We are poets.
Hey, thank you, Margaret. Great poem. All right, Marvin, you're up, and Robert Rubino, you're on deck.
The title is And They Ate the Marshmallow Men. Mother walked on the ice with the marshmallow men. Toward school she walked, pushing a carriage sagging with party joy. The phonograph in the recess where the feet go. On the seat, the records topped by cupcakes, Tootsie Rolls, nuts, gum, Cracker Jack. Mother, toward the party she pushed. 6 blocks took an hour with the ice and the brace she wore. The teacher played the piano, the kindergarten danced. Mother played the records, cockle shells and 3 bags full. And they ate the marshmallow men and their raisin eyes and his name on the cupcakes. And after milk, she gave the gifts and told some stories, and they laughed, and he felt hot all over. His mother was so good. She sweated him when he was too old for marshmallow men. Other mothers don't care, she said, when he said, or the others don't have sweaters. She had called him from the stickball game, and the other boys waited. What did they think? And have some milk. You need strength. But Mom, the guys. She called him to the couch. He thought he was too old in high school now for her embrace. She called him funny names, only she called him, and whispered dreams and what he meant to her. One day, years afterwards, he asked his wife, who taught, about the parties in her class and about the marshmallow man. She laughed. Pizza, she said, pizza and Coke. In kindergarten, in my 4th grade, the whole school, pizza and Coke.
Thank you, Marvin. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, God.
Okay, Robert Rubino is up, and Sherry, you're on deck.
Thank you, Tony. Being Sandy Irvine, 22 years old and on the British Everest expedition 100 years ago. Golden youth, golden and emboldened, brain and brawn, fair-haired and rugged and doused with daring do, charm so gracious, so guileless, wearing charisma so form-fitting, flashing horizon-wide big teeth smile with blue-eyed vision vertically affixed on honor with humor, on virility with humility, on the indigenously dual-named goddess mountain, Sagarmatha Chamolungma, straddling Nepal and Tibet. Golden youth, golden and emboldened, pushing onward, upward, seeking life's peaks, indispensable, irrepressible, chosen by George Mallory, the climbing aesthete, gripped by vainglorious ambition, you, the least experienced, to pair with him on the ultimate ascent, within sight, within frigid grasp of summit sublime, tied to your leader, your mentor, your idol, your haunted hero, each in gabardine coats and hobnail boots, stepping into the risks, into the mists, slowly stepping, disappearing evermore into Himalayan lore. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. As always. Okay, Sherry, you're up, and Dorothy, you're on deck.
Hey, this is from my mom. I wrote this poem on Mother's Day. Looking around my room in early May, I realize I have a lot of things. There's an antique teapot and a bracelet with fake diamond bling, an old faded floral pocketbook with fading straps, and a torn denim skirt from the Gap, a blue china chipped cup, and an ancient brown holy one-eyed stuffed pup. All of these things I got when with you on those special shopping spree days, just us two. I've decided I'm not a hoarder, I'm a memory keeper. All of the pieces I hold have a meaning which goes much deeper. I gaze at the plum-colored lilac tree outside my window. Lilacs were your favorite. The lilac tree is in full bloom. The perfume-like scent seeps through the open window. An intoxicating fragrance fills the room. I smile, a smile as wide as a mile. I'm now sure you are here with me and always will. I feel a chill. I feel you. You will always be traveling with me.
Thank you very much. Moving poem, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Dorothy, you're up, and Mark, you're on deck.
Hello.
Hello.
I chipped a tooth, so I'm not going to let you see me.
That's okay.
Okay. I wrote this poem a week ago. It's entitled Seldom Seen, SCENE, but it could also be a play on word as SEEN. Seldom seen. With the wind as a medium of exchange, I watch his lifesome figure as he salams along the maze of city streets, asphalt and concrete, past planted pansies, geraniums, and bearded iris, dandelions growing randomly in cracks, an athlete gyrating among monuments of stone and metal that commemorate our wars and heroes. He pivots on corners of murals and graffiti menacingly scribbled. Fountains gently spraying water sound like xylophones. He undulates through magnolias, dropping their leathery leaves underfoot, and crepe myrtle trees blossoming, while squirrels scurry with cheeks full of nuts, and pigeons promenade, regal and plump from fast food droppings. I watch as this guy whizzes by, his corkscrew plaits and twists lilting on a gentle breeze. He navigates the cityscape, gliding, skateboard clumping down concrete steps, his head tilted with purpose like a beagle. I watch him until his silhouette disappears among the picnickers and pedestrians. It is rare to see a dark-skinned boy riding a skateboard, displaying agility, grace, and prowess, usually reserved for football, basketball, soccer. His destination unknown, he leaves behind a pungent, sweet whiff of sweat and weed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, Mark, you're up, and Kitty, you're on deck.
Thank you, Tony. Closed until 8 a.m. That portion of tired that follows chaos and disorder, and phone that never stops notificationing. That body sore and mind numb confusion, as if gravity were running circles around you back and forth instead of taking you down. That moment when a microwave ding is just another doorbell you won't get up and answer. When centering self isn't possible because the four walls collapsed and contractors are booked through next week. All you want is silence. That sweet, sweet blush and make me smile when I don't want to silence. That shoes are off and eyelids are closed until 8 a.m. and there is no care in the world except what you dare to dream type of silence. That toes curl when you think about it silence. That on the verge of achieving silence orgasm is interrupted by muttering, murmuring, and dissension. And the only thing I could say was, we're closed. You'll have to come back tomorrow.
Thank you. All right, I had called on Kitty next, but she has left the building. And so I'm going to ask Chris Thomas if you'll be willing to read next, and Beryl on deck.
Hello, everyone. My poem titled How to Gentrify Laundry. Separate clothes, whites from colors, no mix matching, never blend. Fill machine with hot water, add whites, whites only, bleach to make whiter, brighter, pure. No color guard, no rings around the collar. Wash all dirt away, stains not wanted. This is when whiteness matters. Rinse well, spin cycle, hang to dry, white sheets in the wind. Cool, crisp, privileged, full of life. Thank you.
Thank you. You had me right with the title. Thank you. Okay, Beryl, you're up, and Betty, you're on deck.
Hello, everybody. I'm enjoying your poetry. The poem I'm going to read is called Only a Matter of Time. And it was written 4 years ago for my brother who died of COVID on that date. It's called Only a Matter of Time. You would have been surprised by your passing, astonished by the sequence of events, astounded that death in his current rampage would stop at your door. Death would wage an assault, snatch what wasn't his, fight with time, and appear to win. You would have chuckled that of all people, death would be this random to pick a fight with you. Just the absurdity of it, the arrogance of it for death to knock out time, time that you had, time with your girl, time to dote on your daughter and do things. You would have dispensed wisdom and comfort with your usual economy, reminding us that death won this round. And though we are shocked and stunned and stricken with grief, death has already been conquered. It's only a matter of time. And it's for Dave. Thank you.
Thank you. Very moving. Thank you very much. Okay, so Betty, you're up. And Rosa, you're on deck. Betty? Betty going once. Betty going twice. Rosa, you're up, and Julian, you're on deck. Rosa, you with us?
Yes, I'm here. I didn't know I was going to be doing something, but I can.
Sure, please do. Everybody, we have everybody down, and unless you tell me no. So,
Okay.
Rosa, you're
I
up,
didn't
and
know
Julie,
rules. I
you're
didn't know
on deck.
rules. Okay, so I'm going to do one. The name of it is The Power of Unity. The power of unity shall break every chain. The state of being where our families, communities, race, and nation are one and the same. It starts with 3 or more strands of a cord forging a path in the same direction, forming an undivided, undeniable pact of strength, courage, perseverance, and protection. On Juneteenth, we celebrate God's gift of freedom and another chance to be one nation under Him, indivisible with liberty and justice for all. So don't let the chains of society nor self-imposed bondage reverse discrimination. Let's break loose onto one accord. Let's choose to be unifiers. Let's choose to be unified. Let's continue to rise with Jesus' pride, with assurance in our stride, with the genius that is within our tribes, with wokeness and knowledge that we are emancipated to possess all of these things. Emerge and let freedom ring through the power of unity to break every chain. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Tom, are you going to be reading anything tonight? Yes? Okay, so Julian, you're up, and Tom, you're on deck.
Hey. Can you hear me?
Yep, sure can.
Origami. Your skin is papery, white, malleable. Perhaps with the right creases, you could be a bird, still unflappable. A blank page, lines unwrit, yet you do not fit into any oblong, A4, letter, legal, plain. A complicated fold, maybe. It would take a book to explain. A page ripped from a journal, crumpled, tossed in a bin, begin, again, recreate. What are we all if not books on a shelf, sometimes leaning on each other, sometimes standing alone? The great librarian never labeled us, and yet we all find time to stick labels on each other like dewy-eyed decimals. Unboxed, unwrapped, stamped, stacked, yet to be discovered. The lucky ones, borrowed, turned, read, returned. The unlucky ones, shelved. We read to know we are not alone, says C.S. Lewis. We write to belong to the unknown. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. There we
Thank you
go.
for this opportunity. I'm very much enjoying what I'm receiving. I just mentioned Billie Holiday wrote a song called Strange Fruit, and it ties very much in with Sistah's message about trees. I encourage you to read Strange Fruit or listen to the song online. This is a short piece that was read at a men's meeting I was at on Saturday in Brentwood. Come new to this day. Remove the rigid overcoat of experience, the notion of knowing, the beliefs that cloud your vision. Leave behind the stories of your life. Spit out the sour taste of unmet expectation. Let the stale scent of what ifs waft back into the swamp of your useless fears. Arrive curious, without the armor of certainty, the plans and the planned results of the life you imagined. Live the life that chooses you. New every breath, new every blink of your astonished eyes. Rebecca Del Rio. And it echoes the "We Release Yesterday" that was read earlier by Sistah. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. I hope you come in Brentwood. Are you correct in assuming California?
No, Ann invited me. We're
Oh.
we reacquainted friends.
Okay, great. So like Brentwood, Long Island.
No, I'm on West Hempstead.
Oh, okay, great.
I go to a men's meeting on the campus of
Oh,
the
okay.
Sisters
Okay.
of St. Joseph in Brentwood. Good place.
Well, I hope if you can make it down to Oceanside and come visit us at the gazebo. All right, so I only have DD and JR left. Anybody else have to read? Okay, so without any further ado, DD, take
Thank you, Tony.
the spotlight.
I have to say, I always say thank you to the readers, and I am overcome by the messages and the love, the humor, the humanity tonight. Thank you so much, Sister Joy, and everybody. So this is called Longtime Playground. April gone, May too soon. Confusion reigns. Flowers promise to stay alive despite the weather turning its back on dreams. I run into a sun that hides and legs cool in the late afternoon. I remember you holding out a sweater for my chilled arms. Here, you said, this will warm you. And the sun moved across the sky as the calendar moved across my life. Sensible shoes replaced bare feet. Worry creased a brow just yesterday, the smoothest map. The world turns in a semicircle, thrusting forward, pulling back, tides of time, rivulets of fear. We overturn our history, dig into sands of time past, of hope to come. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. JR. Bring it on home.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Sister Joy. Thank you, open micers. Wow, how cool. Wonderful. And as always, thank you, Tony. It's kind of cool. We're closing a door and opening another one in 2 weeks. And so I'll bet all you people wish you lived on Long Island. But here on Long Island, the birds, oh my. We have 17 nests in our awning. And so it made me think of this poem that I wrote for Tony a couple of years ago, and hopefully he won't mind. How to Kill a Mockingbird. For Tony and his nemesis building a nest under his bedroom window. Hire the entrepreneur kid down the street, the one that extorts you for raking leaves and shoveling snow, the one I'm sure has a merit badge and slingshot accuracy issued by the NRA Preteen League. Supply him with a signed blank check and a shoebox for the feathered corpse. Disposal is your job. If that doesn't work, sprinkle baking powder around the nest, on the window frame, and down the siding of your house. Go to the local tavern, booze it up with the resident barflies, and let spill that you've got a mockingbird trained to steal coke and heroin, and drop in a fake nest outside your window. Sooner than you think, the Colombian drug cartel will cart your problem off for you free of charge and not exactly illegal. If that fails, remember it's no sin to kill a mockingbird that's fallen off the wagon of innocence and no longer sings his heart out for us overnight in a park or orchard, but deprives us at home sleep and dreams where silence lullabies us is a crime. So build a tree house in the branches of the nearest tree, and if there isn't one, plant one. Adopt a litter of cats that have no acrophobia or agoraphobia or ornithobia and move them in. Feed them sparingly. Install a spotlight, red flashing arrows pointing to the nest, and let the felines do the rest. If all that doesn't get rid of the blasted singing bird, move. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And if you all don't mind, I might, I'm gonna take advantage of the forum and I'll read one. It's an older one, but it's one I think appropriate for all of us as we enter the next season here. But first, let me. My clothes are all washed, folded, and put away. My desk is neat, old papers filed, pencils sharpened, stapler loaded, paperclip jar jammed to the brim. I've written lists of life events I've planned, projects to do, places to see. The floors are vacuumed and polished, each room dusted and scrubbed. Even the inches of wall behind the light switches are wiped free of offending dirt. My car is washed and waxed, oil changed, tires rotated, gas tank filled, radio stations reset for my current favorites. No weeds remain in the beds or the freshly mown lawn. I've rearranged the shed, emptied the garage, then filled it again. There's enough seed in the bird feeders to save Tippy Hedren. Old clothes are in the donation bin, used cans in the recycle bin, potato peels in the compost bin. I've called my daughter the elder, my daughter the younger, my brother, my sister the elder, my sister the younger, my aunts and uncles, my cousins first, second, third, and removed, my nephews and nieces, neighbors, old friends, new friends, acquaintances, old workmates, new workmates, teachers and coaches, and Cub Scout leaders. I've had tea with Jehovah's Witnesses until they've begged to leave. I've cleaned the pantry and the freezer and scoured the bottom tray of the toaster oven. I've cared for my person from hair to toes and all in between in detail too gross to mention. I've watched TV shows and DVDs and cleared out my DVR. I've listened to CDs and MP3s and rearranged the playlist on Spotify. I've answered all my email, forwarded all the chain letters, Googled everyone I've ever met, signed on as many online petitions as I could find, even for causes I don't support. I've balanced my checkbook and sent in all my warranty cards, including the one for the George Foreman grill I gave away last March. I've checked my horoscope, tackled the crossword and the jumble, subdued the Sudoku and the word search. I have the hockey standings memorized. I've gone to the library, the bookstore, the dry cleaners, the supermarket, the fish store, the deli, the jeweler, the card store, the florist, the donut shop. I've gone to the cigarette stand, though I don't smoke, the bodega, though I don't speak Spanish, the tuxedo rental store, though there's no formal in my future. I've taken my pills, my flaxseed, my vitamins. I've baked and seared and barbecued, roasted and braised and fried. I've showered and bathed and napped. I've daydreamed and nightmared. I've hoped and I've prayed and I've begged. So it's almost time to write. All right. I wish you all, those of you who I will not be seeing over the next few months, I wish you all nothing but the best. I hope you write a lot. And we look forward to getting you all back here in September. But for those of you in the area, I cannot wait to see you out on the Schoolhouse Green, where the sun always shines and the words are always beautiful. Thank you, everybody.
Wow.
Thank
Great,
you. God bless you.
great set. Great night. Great night.
Great night.
Happy almost summer.
Yes.
Judy, there is a mockingbird in the